All right. I'm gonna wait, give everybody a minute to get in. We are live. Let me get everything going on. Facebook looks like we're getting going there. All right, we're live on Facebook. All right. Just check something here. 1 second. Just get this up. I'll give everybody a minute to come in. Hold on. All right. All right. All right. Live there. Let me just get this going. Just need to do the Instagram. Then we're going to get going. I'm just going to give everybody a minute to kind of get in. We're going to get into it. All right. So we're live on Facebook. We're going live on Instagram now, and I think we are good. All right, we are live. I'm just going to give everybody a minute to get in. Infernal blessings to all. All right, so we are live on Facebook, Primordial Chaos. We are live on Instagram at Primordial Chaos 9, and we're live right here on Facebook. All right. Just going to give it a minute. And then we're going to get into it. All right, so we're just going to give it a minute. In a minute, I'll just get through some quick announcements. Mandela Born, what's going on, brother? Hope all is well with you. Serpent-Headed Mask, Regina Green, Anthony Footman, Love Legacy 500. All right, we're gonna get it going in a sec. Kind of get right into it. Got a lot of stuff going on here. We got football going on. We got all types of shit right now. It's a good day. All right. I think what I'll do is over the next couple minutes, let me just run through the announcements, get that out of the way, and then we can, go right into what we need to. So a couple of things. We have some on Patreon for Patreon members. Just to run through a couple of things on Patreon. This upcoming Saturday, the 23rd. January 23rd, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a class for Patreon members on tiers 3 and up on Cryptochromes, Theta Sorcery, and the Sixth Sense. All right. That will be Saturday from about 3 to 6, roughly in that area. If you have not checked out my Patreon page, check it out, patreon.com/Beniti. A lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about today, I have added an Egyptian Hecker tier. If you are interested in learning exclusively about Egyptian Hecker and Egyptian sorcery, black magic, and understanding some of the magical Egyptian mysteries that are not talked about, in my opinion, enough, there's a tier set up for that. That has just started. So I want to put that out there. There is also a African witchcraft and sorcery tier where we'll be covering things like Kimbada. We'll be covering Palo Mayembe, some of Palo Monte, and various forms of African witchcraft and sorcery. So I'm kind of breaking these things down individually. I'm even going to share on some of those tiers my personal experience in those paths, initiations, rituals, source material, you name it. We'll be covering a large spectrum in both of those areas. So those are 2 new tiers I just added a few weeks ago. So check that out. In addition, there's tiers on there to give you access to the classes and the rituals that are done only on Patreon. And there's also a mentorship program on there that I mention every week. It's the mentorship program. It is work. As I said before, if you're going to sign up for that and participate, be prepared to work. It is a one-on-one program where I work with you. We meet a couple of times a month to discuss the path, ritual work. There's coursework, work you have to turn in, not because it's being graded, but that's the methodology we use for the dialoguing system. So definitely check out the Patreon page. Again, private classes, lectures, videos, rituals. There's a mentorship program on there. There's 7 different tiers. I'm sure you can find something of interest if you're looking to further your development on this path. That's the purpose of the Patreon page. We get a little more internal, a little more private on there. And that's why obviously it's a members only page. So again, that's patreon.com/Beniti, BANITI. Everything I'm telling you is in the description box here of the videos. If you forget, you can go there. Also check out our social media pages. We are on, again, Facebook at Primordial Chaos. 2 words, capital K, Primordial Chaos, capital C, 2 words. We're on Instagram, Primordial Chaos 9, all one word, no spaces. We're live on Instagram right now also, and Facebook. And then obviously the YouTube page here. We have an upcoming class next month, which I believe is the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's posted on the Instagram. Not so sure if I might be off on the date. I know it is I believe the last Saturday in February. It is on the Instagram. I believe it's the 23rd. We're going to be doing a class there. Matter of fact, I should look on there. I don't want to mess up the date. I'll double check that before we hold on. I'll tell you right now. I just don't want to mess up the date. Hold on one second. All right. I just don't want to mess it up. Hold on. I don't want to give you wrong information. Okay. So hold on one second. Let me give you the exact date and time. Just sometimes there's so much shit going on, I can't remember it all. All right, so that class is on Saturday. I'm sorry. See, I was wrong. Thank God I checked. I was about to give you the wrong date. It's actually the first Saturday in March, Saturday, March 6th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Anybody can sign up for that class. The information how to sign up is posted right here on the community section on YouTube. It is on Primordial Chaos Facebook, Instagram, Primordial Chaos 9. The class will be on the sacred and hidden mysteries of Baphomet. We will go into depth on the sacred science of Baphomet, what it is, and most importantly, what it is not. Because there's a lot of bullshit out there, religious and other bullshit that's out there on the Baphomet. We will discuss rituals, rites, working with the Baphomet energy, using Luciferian philosophy and witchcraft, etc. The class is $56. It'll be 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, March 6th. It can be paid by PayPal using the email in the description box here, knum19@gmail.com, KHNUM19@gmail.com, or it can be paid by Cash App. All right. And the Cash App is #Beniti9. Okay. I actually have to go into and update that. I'll do that afterwards. All right. So that's the information on that. And if you are interested, I'm still for a couple more weeks. I'm still doing the yearly forecast readings. There's about 3 more weeks left of that. And then that stops until next year. If you're looking to get, I've been extremely busy with that. That's what's been taking up a lot of my time for the last 3-4 weeks. If you're interested in doing a yearly forecast reading for 2021, it's consulting the telepathic demonic spirits and energies, and it goes in depth and gives you an in-depth analysis of what to expect for 2021. If you're interested in that reading, a reading with Santa Muerte and the spirits of the dead, a shadow work reading, as I've said many times before, and I'll say it again, very personal, very intense. You are not obligated to talk about anything you do not want, but highly recommended. If you're looking for a good place to start, where should I begin? How should I do work? Well, shadow work reading will definitely help and assist you with that area that you need to start with. And then I offer various different clepothic demonic readings. For any of the readings or a spiritual consultation, a yearly forecast reading, shoot me an email again at khnum19@gmail.com. Again, that's khnum19@gmail.com. Please include days and times you are available in the time zone that you live in. And the last thing, Journey of the Black Adept Conference for 2021 will be the 29th to the 31st this year, last weekend in October. More to come on that as far as depending on the situation and the climate going on with this COVID stuff. Hopefully at that time we were able to do it again in person, but we will see as time unfolds. So you can mark your calendar down for that. We did it virtually this past October, one way or the other. We will do it. Hopefully we can do it live and plan it as we have planned it the couple years prior to last year. All right. Other than that, I covered the announcements that I wanted to get through. So what I want to talk about today, because this has come up, I've gotten some recent emails on this. I've gotten, all right, and I will get to some of your comments. I appreciate, I'll get to some of your comments in the chat once I get through the material, but appreciate the compliment. Black Tower, thank you. And shout out to you too, Maniac Mitchell. Good to see you here, brother. All right. Again, I'll get back to the chat. I'll definitely get back to you guys. So this has come up, and even it actually came up with one of my students in the mentorship program yesterday. It's come up in a few emails. It's come up in some discussions. I've talked a little bit about this here and there. I haven't really ever done a exclusive class or video on it. So I figured let's tackle this today. What is the Egyptian conception explains it the best. The Egyptian conception of soul and spirit. Are they the same? Or are they different? They're different. They're not the same. Some people confuse this for being one and the same thing. And they are completely incorrect, right? Even when you start with, and I'm going to go through a section here, two sections here. I'll give you the source material so you can do your further research. Even when you go into the religious text of the Torah, right? You find two Hebrew words used in the Torah, one for spirit, one for soul. You'll find the word nephish. You might see it spelled two ways, Nephish or Naphshih, just depending on how it's translated. That is the word you will see for spirit, right? Nephish, right? In the Aramaic Hebrew. And for the word soul, you will see ruach, right? You might see it spelled Ruwach or Roach. It just depends on who's translating it into English. It's just how they abbreviate it. Really, the English doesn't really mean anything. It's irrelevant. But again, ruach is for the soul in the Aramaic, and nephish, right? For spirit. There's a clear distinction between the two, right? We're going to go through a section called the 9 parts of the Egyptian soul to show you the soul is the vital life force or essence or the very fabric of who and what you are. It powers every aspect of your energy, and it is energy in its essence. The spirit are what it reflects or emanates the emotions or feelings of the soul, right? So just to liken this so you can get an understanding. They say you can have team spirit, right? Or school spirit. And what is that? When you have a certain spirit, you are exercising a certain vibration or emotion. So based how you tap into the very core essence of your soul is how your spirit resonates or vibrates. Because someone say, well, that person, they got a good spirit, right? because of the certain vibe that they give off. But that's not the very essence of core of who and what you are, which is the soul, right? Which is basically energy. As we break this down, we're going to get into it in a minute, right? Now, also, it's important to understand this in relation to the chakras, because when you're working magic, especially when you're doing what they call in ancient Egypt performative utterance via your invocations, a lot of that comes from the very essence of who you are, the heart chakra, which there is a connection with that. And we'll get into that. All right. I'm going to go through a section, though you can find this, and this is not exclusive to this book, and I'm going to explain that. But in the Draconian Egyptian Grimoire by Bill Davenduck, right? It's a good book here. Came out about a year or so ago, maybe a little long, I'm not sure. Again, the Draconian Egyptian Grimoire. There's another book I'm going to touch on. I've used and shown this book many times over the last 3 or 4 years. The Necrominion book, which is the works of Charles Paste, reprinted by Michael W. Ford. It's not Michael W. Ford's work. He makes that clear in there. It was reprinted. There's 2 good sections in here that kind of tap into this, but they make it clear. I want to make this clear. This is not their breakdown. They're taking a lot of this information from some of the sacred texts of ancient Egypt, be it the pyramid text, the coming forth by day, etc. So this is not their exclusive work or material, and they make that exclusive, right? So there's a section in here in the very back, if you do have the book and you want to follow along, page 129, Appendix B. There's a section called 9 Parts of the Egyptian Soul. What is this, right? I want to be able to go through this, and obviously I'm going to build on it in addition to what's here, because as you know, I don't just read stuff. We go through it, we break it down. All right, so the author makes it clear. This material is not strictly from this Draconian Egyptian epoch, which is why it is an appendix instead of being part of the main text. So if you know the structure of how books, an appendix is you're adding something of historical data or something that is already in existence that belongs to somebody else. You're adding it to your written body of work, but making it clear you are not laying claim as if this is something new. So this is an appendix to the book towards the back. So I want to make that clear because that is important. All of this was developed over an extended period of time in ancient Egypt, and therefore it is hard to pin down to one particular time period. However, one of the things ancient Egypt is known for is its intricate death and dying processes, not just including mummification, but also afterlife beliefs. There are many questions about this material, and it is my intent to have this piece clear up as much as it can. Now, you're going to find out monotheistic, your modern day, in the last couple of thousand years, monotheistic religions such as Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, you will see, took a lot of these rites, rituals, concepts of life and death from ancient Egypt. I'm sure we're all familiar with that in doing our research. The Immaculate Conception, baptism, all of these rites have their roots in ancient Egypt when you do your research, right? The virgin birth comes from the concept of when we read the story of Set doing battle with Usir or Osiris and chopping his body up into 14 pieces. And then the story goes, Aset finds the phallus and she uses the phallus to conceive Horus, right? This is your Immaculate Conception story that the Catholic Church so heavily and intensely promotes, right? This is where this comes from. The Trinity concept comes from ancient Egypt. As you see all throughout Egypt, they have what they call triads of different deities, right? The most popular, obviously, being the triad of Ra or Re, right? This Father, Son, Holy Spirit concept, or this triad concept is where this comes from, right? You have that God the Father, which would represent Osiris, the Son, Heru, and the Holy Spirit would be Khonsu in ancient Egypt, because when you go back in ancient Egypt and you'll find Khonsu, who is a deity of healing, right? It was very common for people to have an image of Khonsu at that time in their place of domain or where they live, because it dealt with the presence, quote unquote, of those holy or pure spirits, for lack of a better word, however you want to interpret that. Long story short, without getting into all of a lot of that, you're going to find out even the life, as it says here, dealing with the death process, mummification, which is first mentioned in the book of Genesis, and I believe it's in the last chapter, the 49th or the 50th verse. We see that connection with the character called Joseph. We see how Joseph's father was mummified. You see the first mentioning of mummification in the Torah goes back. Now, we know that historical data is not accurate. The time frame of this character, Joseph, and Pharaoh Ramses II, it couldn't be. From Pharaoh Ramses II to Moses on down, it couldn't be, because the timelines don't match up. But that's a story for another time. But the point being is, you'll see a lot of these rites, practices, rituals all have their origin in ancient Egypt. Really, in essence, if you take Egypt out of the Bible, it's hard really to factually prove pretty much anything in there. That's the best way I could put it. As I said before, we also have to understand there is no record that anybody can produce in ancient Egypt of any people called Israelites residing there for 430 years. It doesn't exist. So that poses another huge question and another huge problem. Who are these people being identified as Israelites in the Torah, but not being identified in ancient Egypt? And as we know, the ancient Egyptians were meticulous in keeping records. And you would think if there was such a people that existed and were there for 430 years, there'd be some trace of them. Now, you do find traces of a tribe, a group of people called the Hyksos, or the Hekakasut, the Shepherd Kings, right? And their story is almost identical to the biblical Israelites, right? They reside there for 430 years. They were driven out, etc. Not a coincidence. So now we have to really understand who and what were these people, etc. Right? So, having said that, to show you the connection and the grafting, obviously, of where they took a lot of this information, even when it comes to dying, right? And the soul, the spirit, right? As I've said before, you look in modern day Christianity, there's this custom or tradition of wearing black to a funeral, right? And if you ever ask a Christian, where does that come from? You can't find it in the Bible, because there's nowhere in the Bible where it says to wear black at a funeral, but that you can find the connection with the ancient black Egyptian jackal dog of the dead, Ampu or Anubis, who is a black jackal or dog. And that's where this symbolicism of wearing black comes from, because it comes from ancient Egypt, right? They wear black. Christians will wear black to funerals, right? But they don't even know where that custom or tradition comes from. So this is one of many. So let's get into the 9 parts of the Egyptian soul, right? Different time periods, coupled with different natirs and vogue, all contributed to this material over the duration of 3,000 years of Egyptian culture and empire. All of this shows a complex understanding of the soul, and it is worth knowing because not only can it be adapted for use today, right? It can be very useful for understanding how intertwined magic was with the beliefs and practices of the average Egyptian. All right. So we're going to go through this material because this will remove a lot of the spooky stuff that's out there about life and death. Now, look, let me say this. Here's the reality. I know there's a lot of information out there. A lot of people will make claims and statements, some comical yet ridiculous. Nobody can 100% say for certain or sure what happens to you when you physically give up the last breath and make the transition. You'd be a fool if you tried to. I don't care what you've read in the coming forth by day, the opening of the mouth ceremony, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or any other grimoire or sacred so-called text from any culture that was trying to conceptualize what exactly happens, right? What this does give you is a good understanding from a spiritual and scientific aspect, and gives more clarity and removes a lot of the spookism that exists out there. We need to understand that, and we have to be clear on that as we move forward, because if we're not, we can kind of get caught up in certain belief systems. Now, again, I would always, as I've always done, I would always encourage you to do your further research, do your further study. As I say, for all the videos I put out for years, I don't tell you to believe everything I'm telling you. I tell you to research these things, come to a clearer conclusion on your own, okay? All right, so the first thing, let's take a look at the Khat, K-H-A-T. You might be familiar with this term if you study ancient Egypt. All right? All right, hold on. All right, get some more light in here. Just turn that on. All right, so the Khat, K-H-A-T. This is the physical body itself. So we're going to break this down so you have an understanding of this. In order for the soul to incarnate into the physical world, it needs a receptacle, right? It needs a vessel, right? We've heard this, right? So obviously we all have basic information of the body and soul, right? So let's take this a little step further. This man's got a mind of its own. Hold on. All right. In addition to this, remember, this part of ancient Egyptian beliefs included the belief that the body would accompany the person in the afterlife. Now, notice it's a belief, right? This is why you would see symbolically in the tombs that the ancient Egyptians buried themselves also with their physical treasures. They believed literally that the afterlife was a continuation of this existence here. So keep that in mind. All right. This idea is what led to the eventual development of the mummification process. The more intact and preserved, the better it would serve the soul in the afterlife, right? So we know, obviously, the system we use today, embalming, right? How to remove the organs from the body. We know how the ancient Egyptians used the canopy jars, right? You see those 4 jars, or the 4 sons of Heru. So the organs were preserved, the body was mummified, and it was processed and preserved to make that transition into the next world, the afterlife. We'll get a little more in depth in that. So they believed they could take their treasures, preserve the body, and transition into this afterlife, right? That's part of Egyptian belief system. I want to stress belief. Keep that in mind, because it is a belief. All right. After this, at first, this was a luxury only afforded to leaders and high-standing members in the community. And while that did not continue for the duration, it eventually expanded to include other people in society, right? Not just the elite. This was also the beginning seed or ornate tombs found throughout the land. And eventually, this developed into the stereotypical idea of having crowded tombs with many things that could be taken in the afterlife, right? Metaphysically, we know that the physical form a soul takes on when it becomes corporal is also a compilation of karma collected from previous incarnations as human. Now, this is an interesting subject that comes up a lot, right? And I know some people have brought this up over the years. This thing has a mind of its own. Do we carry residue from karma or past lives into our current lives? Now, I'm going to be careful how I answer this, because there's a lot of information out there on this. There's a lot of stuff you can get in books. Can it 100% be proven and verified? No. I've said for years, through your own personal experience, studies, rituals, and practices, you come to that conclusion and clarification of your past life existence, especially with demonic integration work, especially with working with your bloodline, spiritual ancestors, and unlocking and uncovering your spirit guides, right? This all happens over a period of time. And I've always said for years, the best way to confirm this is to come to your own self-realization of this through your studies, your rituals, and your practices. Remember, it's not about having to prove this to everybody. The main person you need to prove and confirm things like that to is yourself, right? So yes, we could be here for hours having discussions and debating and using various forms of philosophies to tackle this subject. But again, I want to make that clear because I can only speak from my own experience, just like those watching can only speak from their own experience. And yes, we've been here many times before. We've all incarnated here many times before. We've all lived many lives. This is not our first go around. I could definitely attest to that for myself by connecting with past life, spirit guides, etc. So the ancient Egyptians recorded this in their text. They do believe you carried that into your next existence or incarnation, right? Now, there are some occult metaphysical systems out there that teach, and I know the Rosicrucian order, for an example, and being an 11th degree Rosicrucian, teaches that you have to come here many times, quote unquote, till you master this realm. What does that mean, right? We know that this is one of many multiverses, right, that exist in what we call the multiverses, not the universe. Don't get caught up in that, because uni is the Greek word that just means one. There's not one universe. That's a trick in itself. There are multiverses, which is just saying there are multiple universes, right? We know for a fact when we study metaphysics, quantum physics, and science, we see the connection with the quantum understanding of this through quantum physics, right? Metaphysics, which is a term, just means beyond the physical. So we know that this based on science and metaphysics can be researched and identified, right? But there are systems out there that teach you come here many times until you master, quote unquote, when they say your lower self, bridge the harmony and understanding between your objective and subjective consciousness, etc. Now, that's a system that comes with certain paths or dogmas that teach that. Can that be verified 100%? No. Again, you need to come to this conclusion in reality based on your work. Not because, and let me say this, and I want to make this clear, and as you know, a couple of weeks ago, I went off on the spooky bullshit. Stop co-signing on other people's subjective experiences, right? This is why I will never get on here. I could sit here and talk about past life experiences, and I touched on it briefly here and there, but I don't want to get into a whole, long-winded discussion on that and start trying to sell it where people try to co-sign on it as if they can validate somebody else's personal experience. I told you, I'm not into all of that. I got to download, from the ancestors and all that nonsense, because not one person can speak for everybody's ancestors. Maybe you got to download from your ancestors, but maybe the shit that you're saying doesn't quite line up with everybody else's ancestors, right? We have to be careful when we do things like that. And it's not saying those people are not having some type of subjective experience, okay? True indeed, but we got to stop co-signing on this shit as if this applies as a whole in its totality to everybody, because it don't. And if you accept that, you're just as foolish as a religious person that goes to church and believes everything that the pastor says up on the pulpit. Remember, this is a path to self-mastery, self-realization. You need to come to the truth and the reality of these things and the self-realization of them through your work and study. Because when you confirm it for self, that's when something becomes truth. So if somebody gets on in a class or in a video or in a forum and starts talking about they speak to spirits, they get downloads, they did this, Kali appeared before them and told them this and that, and you sit there like, oh wow, that's heavy, that's deep, and you're eating and gobbling up everything they're saying, then you're a follower. That's all that means. You're looking for somebody to follow. You are not interested in mastering yourself and doing this work for yourself so you can have your own experiences, not feed off and live off of somebody else's bullshit, okay? We need to establish that, all right? So secondly, let's go into the Kabit, right? Or Kabit, as they say, Khaibit. This is the second of the 9 principles of the Egyptian soul, right? This is the best parallel to that. It is the etheric double from theosophy, or the energetic body as it is known in various energy working traditions. Everything we know about the etheric double and energetic form can be applied here. So the etheric, etheric Therian, right? There's, again, I'm going to make reference to the Rosicrucian order. They talk about the silver ether cord, right? Or the etheric life cord, the vital life cord, it's also called VLF, right? So when we say your etheric double, right, we have a physical body, and then we have an etheric double that replicates this, right? This confirms the principle, now follow along here, that we are beings, and not in the new age, fluffy, kumbaya, hold hands, run through naked grass fields, butt naked methodology. We are beings of light or intellect and energy, right? It's just, again, as we speed up our vibrational frequency, and alchemy was trying to show us this. And as I told you, I use dark alchemy in my classes and in the mentorship program to show people how to do shadow work correctly, right? When our vibrational frequency is sped up and we become less dense, we become those beings of energy or ether, right? That's what the Hermetic principles of Tahuti are trying to show you. That's what the Emerald Tablets is trying to show you. How does one make themselves less dense, right? It makes themselves less dense, first, by the decalcifying process, right? Identifying areas of calcination, right? Because if the pineal isn't activated, the crown chakra is not open and receptive, one cannot be that vessel or vehicle to be that root of that energy, right? To be able to speed up your vibrational frequency, right? This is what this is talking about. This is what Tahuti was trying to explain, or I should say, known as Tahuti, but in Emerald Hermes, as they call him in Hermeticism, was trying to explain to his students that the one thing, what is the one thing? How these things are connected but yet separate. How we have the ability to travel the above and the below while yet in human form, right? And they had all these questions of doubt. How can we do that if we are merely humans, right? And then there was questions in there where he says, when you say God, do you mean the one thing? And is the one thing and God the same thing? And they were getting all confused because they were looking at this from a very minimal mortal standpoint, right? So when we look at the first principle here, right? The cot or the body, know that this is just the vessel. The energy that's inside the vessel or the very soul, that is energy that never dies. As it transitions and evolves on, it just finds at some point another vessel to incarnate in. Now I'm gonna drop some more jewels on you, because if you look at a lot of the spirits, demons, and archetypes we work with, why we say they're character types and they represent energy of these character types, they can take on form any period, any time. This is why I said stop putting time frames on. Stop trying to time frame Lilith. Stop trying to time frame Nut, Lucifer. Lucifer is older than time itself because it's an energy, right? It's an energy that you tap into your psyche, and then only then does it take on whatever form you give it. I'm not saying there's not, and this is another thing to give clarity. I'm not saying there's not a physical manifestation to this, but you create it based on your experiences, what you've studied, what you've taken in, the images you've laid your eyes on. Your subconscious mind is formulating, it's creating and destroying simultaneously. You just don't realize it. So when you go into a ritual and you have an experience with one of these spirits or archetypes or demons, you giving it the life, you're giving it the form, right? We're going to get a lot, if we have time, to get into anthropomorphic existence and how these beings take form and how that connects to us. Now, all of this was trying to be shown in the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti, right? And people always say, to understand magic in this path, I've always said that's a great place to start, because you will get a better, thorough understanding of what this is about, right? So this is just this is the vessel. That's it, right? This is not who you are. And this is why I talk about for years the illusionary self, who you think you are based on this, all of this, right? Don't get caught up in that, because that's what gets a lot of people messed up. They take on these false personas these false egos, these false character types, and they really start to falsely believe that this is who they really are. And that can get a lot of people jacked up in many ways, okay? All right. All right, so that's the kabet, right? Third, we move on to what's commonly known as the Ba, right? B-A, the Ba, right? This is part of the soul that a lot of people know about, and that should tell you all you need to know regarding it. The Ba is more or less the personality of the soul, right? Now, this is an aspect of the soul really that connects with spirit, because this is the part of the soul that emanates or expresses the feelings of what we call the soul in English, right? That's why I try to tell you they're different. And this is why the Ba is what confuses people for the spirit and soul being the same thing, but it's not. And this can be proven because when you're happy, sad, angry, joyful, depressed, right? These are all different energies or spirit energies that you tap into of how the soul is feeling, right? When the light in the soul is dim, as they say, right? Not only can physical sickness enter the body, but mental and emotional sickness enters the body. And all those things that make the inner light, right? We talk about on this path a black or central sun located in the solar plexus, the inner black sun, which is where you get your power from, right? When that becomes not functioning at its capacity, you can feel disconnected on a multitude of levels. Spiritually, just out of whack, out of sync. You're not on top of your spiritual game. Mentally, there could be a lot of chemical, hormonal, and mental imbalances there. Depression, etc. Emotionally, you just seem like you do not have full grasp, and you're not harnessing the power of your emotions. They tend to control you or devour you in the sense. Now, I want to also explain this because this comes up a lot too about devouring, right? And chaos magic, right? You're not eliminating anything when you're devouring. Let me make that clear. And when you read a lot of these grimoires, some people could misinterpret that by the way they read it or their own personal understanding of it. You are remanifesting what you're devouring, right? Because remember, energy cannot be destroyed. Because if you're eliminating something and destroying it, especially when we're talking about energy, and chaos is energy, where is it going? And where is it disappearing to? You're not, energy is not destroyed. It's manipulated, remanifested, right? We talk about in ancient Egypt, Khepera, coming into the realization of who and what we really are. So when you are dealing with personal problems / personal chaos, you're devouring it in the sense to remanifest it in a shape and form that's more productive for you. So you're taking something that might be negative or bad. It's just like taking a problem and then coming up with the answer and solving it. It's not that you eliminated the energy, you just manipulated it, reshaped it, and formed it for more personal, beneficial use. Okay. All right. So this is important to understand because people get confused with that too. So the Ba, it is more or less the personality of the soul. So it is full of the characteristics that make you. This survives beyond death and some sources even say that it truly comes alive when one dies, right? And this is where we talk about how spirits, right? The soul of spirits continue to live on, right? Even after they separate from, even after the soul separates from the vessel, right? This is considered the actual person itself and could be considered the wakened consciousness of an individual, okay? There was a movie, I brought this up a few years ago, and it came out, I believe, in like 2016. It was with Johnny Depp. Somebody might know, maybe they can type in, I can't think of the name, where the movie was centered around this concept right here. He passes on, but they found out by using all forms of science and technology and computers and all this other crazy shit that the individual's consciousness, as it just described here, still lives on. Now, a lot of famous scientists in the past, like Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, a lot of them talked about this, right? And a lot of them had theories and experiments on a lot of this stuff. I can't remember the name of that movie with Johnny Depp, but it showed this. If somebody can recollect it, type it in. Transcending. I'm sorry. My wife just told me. Transcending. I'm sorry. She's over there listening, eavesdropping everything I'm saying. That's usually what she does. And she'll correct my vocabulary, by the way, if I pronounce a word wrong. But anyway, Transcending. That's the movie. If you have not seen it, some of you probably have, watch that movie because it shows that ancient Egyptian concept. Even though then I can't remember if they connected to that. I don't think they do. But that's really what this is talking about here. I'd go back and watch that movie if you have not seen it. All right. That'll give you a good explanation of what this is talking about. All right. So let's finish with the Ba, and then we'll go on to the fourth. Oh, well, we're going to go on to the fourth now. The Ka, right? Like the Ba, this is the fourth of the 9, right? Is commonly known about those that study the esoteric and dying processes from various cultures and spiritual systems. This was considered the vital essence of the individual. Specifically, you could say this corresponds to the subconscious mind, whereas the Ba is the wakened mind. All right, so let's stop. We talk about that a lot on this path, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, right? The Ka here, because the Ba being what we're conscious of and the Ka being representative of this subconscious mind, right? In some cases, this belief is one of the ones that was colored the most based on the region from where it originated. You could also say that this ties, I was talking about this earlier, the Christian idea of the Holy Spirit. They also believe it could be fed just like you could feed the human body. This is true because what you feed the subconscious mind, the mind is going to affect how the body feels, right? It alters the way you think, the way you feel, and most importantly, the way you perceive. So this is why when you're having intellectual dialogue with people, which some people call debate, this is why differences of opinion form. Now, let me explain how perception ties into understanding this, right? We can put an object in the center of a room, or I can make a simple statement and say to people, explain to me the concept of spirit, or explain to me your understanding of what God is. We would probably get a multitude of answers based on what you fed your subconscious mind and what you studied and how you perceive that information and then how you apply it. And the answers are going to vary from levels based on the amount of experience and study of the individual. So perception plays a large part in our understanding of what we label truth. So when somebody says, I believe this to be the absolute truth, that's the first lie they said, because truth is personal. It's based on your personal understanding of how you perceive things. So if I make a statement that, let's just use something common, that Jesus was the greatest man that ever lived and nobody was greater than him, I'm basing that on a limited perception and understanding of field of study, because we can go back outside of many characters or stories outside of Jesus and find people that performed greater miracles, right? So now we can go back and reevaluate that statement, right? Or let's use the sports analogy, right? We could have debate with sports all day and say, I got the Chiefs and Browns game on behind me, right? The Chiefs are the greatest team in the NFL, right? Then here comes somebody based on their understanding of football and stats and rosters. Yeah, on paper, yeah, but such and such. Then we can start breaking it down. It's how you perceive, okay? And that's why I did a video a couple years back, went over everybody's head. Is there such thing as absolute truth? No, there's not. It's personal. We're not talking about basic truth. 1 + 1 is 2, right? And even that's up for debate. But that's another story. We're not talking about common sense things. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about things of a higher spiritual nature, right? Things beyond the physical, right? Things when we talk about this, spirit, soul, life, death. A lot of personal perception comes into play based on your study and your understanding. Just because, let's say, you're loyal or faithful to a certain spiritual path, that don't mean it's the absolute truth, right? So I don't care if you are a Kemetic master or a yoga guru or a Hindi guru or a babalawo or whatever title you give yourself. And because you've been in that system for 30 years, you might think in your mind you have a lock on a certain subject. That's just your own perception and personal understanding, which is okay as long as you're open to dialogue. This is why debates can be a waste of time, because how can you have a debate on life and death with, say, somebody who is religious, who comes from, say, the Black Hebrew Israelites, and they're going to debate with somebody who comes from the Kemetic understanding of life and death, and they might want to debate, say, with somebody who comes from our path, which they'll get eaten up and destroyed, because we'll smash both of those things, because it's the certain perception and mindset. And then forget it. Traditional religious people don't even fall into the equation, because you can just crush that in the blink of an eye. Anybody that comes with all that religious nonsense, right? We have to understand this, because as you move forward in your understanding, this is what will give you a better, clearer picture of it in its totality. All right. So let me continue. I'm going to get through these. And then again, I will get to the chat and your questions. Just be patient. All right. Whereas the Ba is the waking mind, it's where we left off. In some cases, okay, we left off of that. They also believe that it could be fed, right? That's where we left off, that you can feed the mind, right? But they took it a different approach than what feeding the spirit means today. This is the source of offerings being left for the dead, right? So we're not talking about a physical offering. And that's the problem with a lot of these traditional systems. They talk about feeding the spirit physically, right? And I always talk about some of this comical shit. And coming from that background, being in Ifa and Santeria for years, and I always used to remember people saying, as I reflect back on it now, and I even used to think it was ridiculous then, people would say dumb shit like, I left the offering of bananas for Shango. And then 2 days later go, look, Shango's eating the bananas because they're rotten. No, that's like the dumbest shit you can say. How do you know that? I've said this many times before, and if you missed it, let me say it again. Leave bananas on your countertop for a few days. What starts to happen? They start to turn black, get ripe, and eventually if you leave them there, they'll just turn crusty, moldy, and disintegrate. All right? So don't sit there and say Shango's eating the bananas or Oshun's eating the oranges because they're getting moldy and rotten. Nobody's eating them shits. It's just natural process of decaying in science and nature that is taking them apart. So we're going beyond that type of spiritual feeding. Now, I have no problem if you're making offerings to the spirit as a gesture of honor, especially to your ancestors. It's just a token of respect and honor, not worship, because we don't worship our spiritual ancestors. We don't do that on this path. They are us and we are them. The same blood that runs through their body runs through our body. So one, you can't worship yourself. We don't do that shit. All right. So that traditional stuff, really, when you look at it, it's not complicated to just dissect and show the ridiculousness in it, right? But we're talking more of a mental and a spiritual feeding, right? As we just explained. All right. Let's go on to the fifth piece or principle of the 9 principles of the Egyptian soul, right? Right. This is called the Aum Akur, right? Sometimes called for short Kua, Khua, right? Notice the term Aum in there, A-U-M. Now, whether you're studying Hermeticism, even in the Rosicrucian order, that is one of the vowel sounds that are intoned at a convocation. A convocation is a spiritual gathering that Rosicrucians gather at with members inside of the temple. And I'm telling you this from being a Rosicrucian for many years. And before the convocation begins, right, certain vowel sounds in a mantra-like fashion are intoned to set the vibration and frequency of the ritual or the convocation. Aum is one of them. There's Om and Aum, A-U-M, right? That is in there, the Aum Akur, right? These are terms you will hear in some mantras or chants because they resonate a certain vibrational frequency that connects. Now, the Om chant, even amongst the Tibetan or Buddhist monks, it's taught that this connects the individual to the very vital life essence of creation, right? Of what our planet, the rhythm and sound that it vibrates at on 8 megahertz, right? This is why mystics and monks use that most popular chant that is filtered down into a lot of cultures over the last years. This is why that is vibrated, because it alters, it restructures, regenerates cells, right? It alters the vibrational frequencies internally of the individual who does it in a consistent, rhythmic, chant-like mantra, right? Notice that there. So the kua, this is a very interesting part of the soul to consider, because it means a variety of things. It can easily be misinterpreted. However, you also see where and how it has influenced spiritual thinking since those times, right? This is the oversoul of an individual, which is in control of the superconscious mind, right? So we hear of the superconscious. What is that? Watch. So basically, it looks at the big picture and can be considered the complete soul when it is not in physical form, and can access memories and experiences from all lifetimes, seeing the entire soul story to see where to grow next. One must vibrate at a person, place, and thing, physical existence, 3-dimensional, to understand this, right? Because as it said, it is the big picture, right? They use, the author uses the term here, it looks at the big picture and can be understood as the complete totality of the soul, right? But cannot fully be comprehended and understood in a 3-dimensional existence, right? Now we can factor in astral travel, which is the science of vibrating outside of person, place, and thing, whether it's through the dream realm, through your rituals, through your meditations, etc., right? Out of body experiences, right? Or OBE, as they say, right? In many cultures, manna is considered to be divine food or sustenance. And you could say this is true here as well, in that it is the life essence of the soul itself. This is the real you, the very core of who and what you are, right? The easiest way to understand this is to think of it this way. What is it that spiritually fulfills you? If you are not being fulfilled on that level, then your mana is depleted and you are spiritually hungry, right? That's what I talked about when the body's not getting enough of light. I'm not talking about physical illuminating light. I'm talking about feeding the soul the light or intellect it needs to sustain and exist, so it can get that understanding of what this is talking about here, right? So know when I'm saying light, I'm talking about intellect. What is one of the concepts we strongly talk about all the time on this path is going into the darkness to do the work of the light, right? You must get that light in the darkness, which is that true intellect, that true knowledge, that true wisdom and understanding. You only get that in the darkness, not in the artificial illuminating light. And that's the problem. All these other systems teach it reversed. It's avoid the darkness, come into the light. Everything's coming to the light, this artificial illuminating light. And they have all these metaphors to promote it, right? You see all these pictures over the years of different looking Jesuses with light and halos around his head and around the heart. He has the crown of thorns and the illuminating light. You know, you see all these images are powerful because, remember, it feeds the subconscious mind, as it said here. So are you feeding your subconscious mind the wrong thing, or are you feeding it, nourishing it with the correct things? Because that's how truth manifests within the individual, right? But we have to be very conscious of this, right? If you are not being fulfilled on that level, then your mana is depleted and you are spiritually hungry. This can be dangerous, as a thirsty person will drink from a dirty cup. So this basically means when you're lost or confused, this is where some people can be very susceptible to falling for any bullshit. These are your spooky ass people that you see them all the time. They're into some new shit all the time. Not in a good way. It's good to be fluid. It's good to be versatile. And it's good to be flexible and constantly changing, as long as there's consistency in that change, right? But when you see somebody who's scatterbrained all over the damn place, they're not focused. They don't get nothing to come. And every time you see them, it just seems like they're into some other shit spiritually. One day they're this, the next day they're that. They don't know what the hell they are. That's what this is talking about. You can get deceived and drink from a dirty cup, get the wrong information. And this is that old saying where this is where you become in a state where you can fall for anything. These are your people who want to be followers. They love listening to people telling them, oh, you know, these are your people who get into these groups, organizations, and cults and believe there's some savior figure that's going to save them. These are your Dr. Yorkites, your Yahweh Ben Yahwehites, your people who belong to all these other religious groups. These are your people who follow a specific organization group or that teaches type of savior because they have downloads from the ancestors. They communicate with aliens and all this other ridiculous shit. When you have the same ability to do that, you don't need any of them to do that for you. But you don't think so because you are susceptible to drink from a dirty cup, because you have not fed the soul what it needs to sustain it, right? And now the soul is hungry and it becomes desperate. It's almost like a crackhead who gets that first hit, and after the high wears off, he'll do anything to get that next hit. That's what this is talking about, okay? So the reason why there's a disconnect with a lot of people, they're not feeding the soul correctly, okay? We see this. This is fact, right? Next, the seventh part of the soul, known as the Ren, which means the name, right? This is the magical name of the individual given around the time of birth. This is important to note because it tells us a soul can have many Ren or names over the course of its evolution. So if you're on this path, we know we gain in our spiritual journey based on different systems. This is the importance of names, right? When you go through different learning systems, sometimes elders give you, it's a given name. We know also on this path, as you obtain a certain level of knowledge and study, you're given your magical personality or your magical name, right? Which only certain people within the inner circle of darkness know you by. That's not your known name, right? Then they talk about in ancient Egypt how you're birthed into the universe etherically, and that name that you were birthed into the universe, that's one name, and then your given physical name by your birth biological parents, that is another name. These all are names, or these are titles that describe you in the various aspects of your evolution, okay? So these are characteristics that make up your soul, right? The Ren, or the name. So know the difference between the name and the given name. It's two different things, right? This magical name is the name of the individual given at birth, right? Remember that all of the power is in the name. And so this can be also seen as the magical name of an individual for this lifetime. You could also call it a secret name as the soul develops. That's the name I was talking about, that only those in the darkness and in certain circles know, right? It would become more powerful and potent. This also ties directly into chanting, vibration, and all things related, right? What this basically means here, then there's a spiritual name that is not a title. It's not a written name. It's a name that it's a tone, a vibration, or frequency, as it described here, that opens you up to the very essence of who you are through ritual. See that? You only experience that when you're vibrating at a certain frequency. That's a spiritual name. And again, we're using a term. Don't think name like a written name with a title and a word. That's not what it is. Okay? This is the understanding of names. And when you're picking known names, and I've said this before, people pick names because the shit sounds good to them or it makes them look heavy and deep. But your name should fit your personality, and you should be able to live up to the name that you take. So stop taking these names as Seti, Ankh, Ka, Ra, Hotep, Heru, right? And then when you break it down, you can't even really understand it. One, and two, you can't live up to it. So it's not about selecting a cool, righteous, spiritual name because it sounds heavy. And some of these motherfuckers be out there with these names. I ain't gonna lie. Some crazy ass names out there, you know, because they think it makes them look heavy or deep, right? And it's not. All right, we got two more here. The eighth part of the soul could be considered the most important in a lot of regards. This is the Ib, right? The IB, right? Which is the heart of an individual. Now, this is what I was saying in the beginning, the insata or the heart chakra. This is where you get your power from. This is why it's one of the most important, okay? This is where you draw your power, your passion, and your strength in your ritual work. It is the very vehicle of energy that is the life substance that gives you that connection spiritually in your ritualistic work and many other areas too. So let's talk a little bit about this, all right? The first part, there's two parts to it. The first part is the one associated with a particular incarnation. The second one could be seen as the heart of the Kua, and it is the accumulation of all experiences of the soul. This is important to note because it would play into the weighing of the soul's passion and play that all souls undergo after death, where the heart is weighed against the feather of the truth. So this is where that weighing on the scales comes from, right? We see where the weighing of the heart ceremony, right? Where the deeds, symbolically, your good and bad deeds, your intentions too, should outweigh your good intentions and deeds are supposed to outweigh your bad deeds, right? The scale of judgment. That scale is used in many pantheons. We see it with Santissima Muerte, the Holy Death, many other pantheons. By the way, this is where Christians get their Judgment Day concept from. That too comes from this in ancient Egypt. Judgment, being judged for good and bad deeds, right? Comes from this right here, right? Notice it said the heart's passion and power. It's important to understand that, especially when you're doing ritualistic work, right? Okay. Where the heart is weighed against the feather of the truth. The heart was considered the most important and vital organ in the body and was known for keeping the emotions and thoughts of an individual. In this way, it also told you what to expect in the afterlife. As the purer the heart, the better the afterlife experience, right? This also focuses in what we call on this path, your intent. That ties into the purity of the heart is not talking also about fluffy stuff like be good, be kind and love your neighbor. That's just common sense shit. That's not what it's talking about. Is your intent legitimate on all levels? Are you practical in dealing with yourself and dealing with others? And the intent or the pure passion of it, which comes from the heart, is your intent in line when you're doing ritualistic work? That's what this means. You always hear me, I'm big on talking about intent and how that is one of the foundational key component pieces in understanding ritualistic and magical work. And most people don't get results or they jacked up because their intent is out of whack and it's all fucked up. And they're not even in line with it or understanding. All right. So very important to understand. All right. All right. And then the ninth and final part of the soul. This is the shiut, S-H-E-U-T, shiut, right? Which is basically, check it out, the shadow self, right? Or the hidden self, right? It was comprised of all things repressed. Here's your explanation for shadow work, people. It's connected to the very aspect or the principles of your soul, right? The shadow or hidden self, which is part of the real you that you repress. Okay, there's a reason why we're big on shadow work and we talk about it a lot on this path. Because it is part and connected to the very vital life force and essence of who you are. You can't avoid the shadow self or the hidden self, right? It was comprised of all things repressed. It also consisted of negative behavior patterns. It existed with the individual in life and could not be dissipated. This is something the ancient Egyptians understood very well. We know it now in modern day terms as your agathodaemon, right? Or your personal daemon, which I want to touch on something in that in a minute, right? Or your higher self, the real you, right? This is what shadow work really in essence is understanding and getting to that real you, removing the veil, right? Filtering out all the illusionary aspects that we create about ourselves. And reason why we want to bring those negative characteristics and behavior to the surface so we could address it. All right. All right. Then it goes on to say, this is something that the ancient Egyptians understood, right? The concept of duality. Not only is this a scientific principle regarding natural sciences, the ancient Egyptians realized this truth thousands of years ago and incorporated it into their spirituality. The writings of Dr. Carl Jung extensively cover this topic for those of you that might be interested in further study. He deals a lot with this on a psychological level and through psychology and understanding the repressed or hidden shadow aspect of ourselves, right? This is why Carl Jung is probably one of the most read psychologists and philosophers on the left-hand path. A lot of people read and study his works. He gets real heavy into the repressive aspect of our hidden self. And we've always said from day one on this path, it must be addressed because it is the very vital life force or soul essence or part of the soul essence of who you are. So you can't just shun it and kick it to the side and act like it doesn't exist, where other paths will tell you, oh, no. Pray away and meditate away your bad habits and behaviors and those aspects of yourself. Just meditate it away. That doesn't do anything. It just creates a stronger persistence by resisting it. That's it. That's all you're doing. You're just making it bubble stronger to the surface. And guess what? When it explodes, it's going to be even worse than as if you tried to deal with it head on, right? And in closing, you can see how all these fit together in a cohesive overall understanding and analysis of the soul, right? Egypt is fairly unique in that it has so many parts of the soul. Some cultures do break the soul down into multiple pieces, but none do it the way they do it here. All right. Now, the last thing I want to get into, there's a short section. This really is also a connection to understanding the agathodaemon or your personal daemon. And what real demonic integration work is about is connecting with the true vital essence of your soul, who you are. That's what demonic integration work is, people. It's not some spooky ass shit. When we talk about the higher self or the real you can only tap into that by understanding this. And this is why I think this is an important topic, and some people can get confused with it, right? So let's go to page in the Necrominion book. This is this book, right? The Workings of Charles Pace, replicated and reproduced by Michael W. Ford. There's a short section in here. Let me find it. Hold on. It's in the beginning somewhere. Hold on. All right. So I wanted to talk about two things. The anthropomorphic representation. Now, again, if you're what you see me talking about here, we go really deep and in depth on the Egyptian Hecate tier on the Patreon page. This is what the Egyptian Hecate deals with exclusively. This is just, I'm scratching the surface with this. We go into all facets of ancient Egypt teachings and magical practices. It focuses solely on that. So if that is a path of interest for you, I would definitely check out that tier. You might be seriously interested if this is an area of study that you really want to learn and master. It is very fascinating. It's probably one of my most loved paths on a personal level because I love this. It's done a lot for me over the years. It's what got me, I would probably say, to kind of where I am now. So let me pull this up real quick. Hold on. I'll find it. Okay, here we go. Let me mark that. What am I doing? Oh, here we go. And then let me just mark the, hold on. I want to find the, where is the, there we go. All right, so I got them all marked here. All right, let me run through this real fast and then I'll take your questions, right? There's a section in the Necrominion on page 76 and 77. It's about a page and a half, which gives you a brief summarization of what we just went over. It's titled the Sethnic or Set Dominion or Divine Aspects of the Self, right? Ren, which we just went over, the name of the agathodaemon or personified true will with the conscious id may also be called a ka or name, right? The id, the heart and conscious personality, the intellect or the emotions, right? We went through that. The shadow, the astral body, assuming form of darkness containing conscious mind. The shadow is called the servant of Ampu or Anubis, right? The Ba, the manifestation of the qualities or power of an individual or a god. Living and deceased individuals have essentially one Ba, while the material have many Bas representing aspects of their power, which is going to lead me into my next quick section, right? The Ka, the vital essence of the life within an individual or gods. When the Ka leaves the physical body at death, the Ba then ascends to the vital essence of the spiritual realm or the place of the material, right? Here's the important one, the agathodaemon, right? In the Greco-Egyptian, the beneficial spirit, which assumes the form of a serpent, modern Luciferianism perceives the daemon slash agathodaemon as the personification of the idealized and deified representation, which centers the inherent desire or true will, right? The daemon is the assimilation of the Ba, Ka, and Sekhem power, right? During the course of life, initiation and the perception of the mind, along with experience in life shapes, empowers or weakens the agathodaemon. The daemon may contain many Bas or personifications of specific qualities, idealized in the Black Adept. And this is why I said, in order for you to really understand how spirits, demons, and archetypes work, your personal daemon needs to be in line with that understanding to personify the incarnation of these beings or spirits that you personify. And I'm going to get into that in 1 second and close that out. I'm doing this quick, right? Heka, magical power within both nature and energy of the Black Adept. So when we're saying Egyptian Heka or black magic, what is it? Magical power within nature and the Black Adept. That's what Egyptian Heka is. It's one of them. It's black magic in its essence. Why nobody talks about this, I don't know. Everybody wants to talk about Father Ra, Father Osiris, and Mother Goddess Aset and Isis and all that fluffy bullshit, as if that's all that ancient Egypt is about. It goes deeper than that. All right. I want to shift to the agathodaemon, and then in the last section, again, I'm running through this super quick. All right. Hold on. Find that real quick. Watch how this all works. Now, I might even do a second part on this, because obviously it would take so much time. But again, we go through this in depth on that tier, right? So on page 88 in that same book, all right, in that same exact book, right, the agathodaemon, right? And the agatho, where is it? Let me just give you this short. Where is it? True will or inherent desire, right? Or of the personal inner daemon or higher self, right? That's it. And in essence, when we're talking about the breakdown of that understanding, right, in relationship to the 9 principles that we just went through, that's how you get a good understanding of how this works internally, right? It's not just about reading some shit or somebody spoon-feeding it to you and then you documenting it and saying, oh, this is factual information. It only becomes factual when you could actually apply it. Now, the last thing, anthropomorphic representation. This is hopefully will clarify and remove a lot of spookism from people who have these illusions of grandeur of speaking with entities and beings and all this other shit that's out there, right? The representation of the gods or deific mats, either theriomorphic / animal, reptile, and human combinations, or anthropomorphic, human, right? The symbolism of the visual manifestation is significant as a clue to their nature and role in the pantheon. For detail concerning the Egyptian influence, for an example, see dragons of the 2 flames, right? The gods have a series of manifestation and forms they may take, This indicates the magical nature of the energy and power which holds ever-transforming yet consistent traits centered in nature and the human mind, body, spirit, right? The face of the Nita is significant in the meaning or choice of using the word associated with its spells, rituals, rites, and I'm kind of going to stop there, and invocations, right? So as I said before, when you're studying, you're reading, your mind and your eyes are laying sight on visuals. You are creating and building that deity in your subconscious mind. So when you say, well, I did a ritual or a meditation and I saw Anubis, you saw that based on that calculation there. Because let me ask you this question. If every remnant or trace of Anubis was wiped from your mind, you didn't have no information, no images, does Anubis exist? Be careful how you answer that question, because people jump and answer that question quick. Let me say it again. If all information and images and anything affiliated or associated was cleared from your mind, would you be able to manifest an image and likeness of Anubis in your minds and in your spiritual work? Be careful how you answer that question. I'm going to let you marinate on that for a minute. Okay? We need to understand that, because this will help you understand when you're having a subjective experience and an objective experience. Okay? And we are not to co-sign on anybody's subjective experiences. You're a fool if you do. If somebody sits there and tells you they had a dream or they had a vision and you have no proof to validate, not saying you can't say, oh, that's interesting, not that you can't theorize and say there could be a possibility to a certain level of truth to that, but when you 100% bona fide co-sign on that shit and you have no validation or factual experience to prove it, then you're religious, basically. Okay, that's pretty much religious, and that's what we don't do. All right, so let's go to the chat and we'll take some comments and questions. We'll finish with that. That's pretty much the material I wanted to cover. So hopefully that helps understanding. There is a difference between soul and spirit. They're not the same thing. Go do your research and you will find out. People, especially in religion, people confuse it for being the same thing. It's not. Now we see, when we break down those 9 aspects, we see how that now explains itself and ties in, right? All right. Let's go up. I'm going to go up to the top. All right. So I want to say infernal blessings to everybody, just for the sake of time. Thank you guys for tuning in. All right. Shout out to the Black Tower, Fatima Mitchell. Good to see you here, sister. Thank you for coming up. Arabian Princess. Serpent-headed mask. What's going on? No, serpent-headed mask. The Egyptian tier is a tier in itself. It's just that. It focuses on that and that only. You get together with me monthly in addition to work and assignments. So it is a form of a mentorship program, but it focuses exclusively on that tier only. No, so they are separate tiers in itself. All right. And yeah, so that answers the second part of your question. It does involve a certain level of mentorship. All right. And I appreciate your trust, Black Tower, and your comment after that. Thank you. Rebecca G said earlier, and again, remember, I'm starting from the top of your thing, so some of these may or may not still be here, and some of these questions might have been answered because these are questions from the beginning, which go back well over an hour ago. I'm starting from the very top. Rebecca G says, soul is the essence of one's existence. The spirit is the characteristics. That's a great summarization, and I think we just went through that. And that's a good personal and, well, really, it's a good general understanding of the material we just went over. And I think that would be a great, if we needed just a quick statement or summarization of what we just did, that would be very good. Vision TG, I got to check my email. I sent you an email. I'm not sure if you responded back. I'll take a look after this. Merciless Butcher. What's going on, brother? Lizam says earlier, I'm thinking that we, in essence, create our own personal daemon by taking pieces of those deific masks we work with and find a connection with. Yes and no, and I'm going to tell you why. That's not 100% factual. It's actually the reverse. By doing your shadow work and using the demonic integration, by integrating the real self or connecting with the real self within you, then yes, where part of what you're saying starts to manifest. As I said earlier, you start to understand and connect with these demons and spirits better, because you do create, as you're saying, because your understanding and intent is in line, you start to create a stronger and more clear connection with them. So I'm going to say, that's why I said yes and no. So you're partially right in a sense, but I think you had it a little slightly reversed. You do start to understand the deific mass better and how you make a connection with them. You're really creating that understanding. I wouldn't say you're creating your personal daemon, because your personal daemon, your real self, is always there. You're doing shadow work to, get that real self to emerge. Now, there are some form of works with deity that can connect with that, but in its totality, that's why I say that's not really 100% true. But you're in line. You're kind of right there. That's again why demonic integration work is so important, right? And that's why shadow work and that there's a connection there, right? The Black Tower says the Athel daemon is connected to the Ka. Is that what you're referring to concerning the shadow double, or are you referring to another aspect of the soul? All right. No, because it's an aspect of the soul in itself. Remember, that was the 9th aspect, the shield or the shadow, right? Really, that is the part of you. Let's go back real quick. So hold on. And I know you typed this in earlier, so I'm not sure if you were here, but let's go back real quick, just real quick, and get the basic understanding. Hold on. All right. The shadow of the Shit, which is basically the shadow self, it was comprised of all things repressed. It also consisted of negative behavior patterns, right? So when we say the concept of duality, right? It's when we say our etheric double in the context of the shadow self and duality, it's not quite the same thing, because spiritually, yeah, there's a connection there, because one, we have the physical, which is the vessel that houses the soul, right? The physical body that the soul incarnates in. But the is connected to that etheric double or etheric counterpart, because that is, in essence, part of the real you. But what it talks about as it breaks it down as an aspect of the soul, it's the repressed part of your spiritual or etheric or spiritual nature that we repress, right? So there's a connection. They are interconnected, as you described, but they're not quite exactly the same thing. It's the repressed aspect of that. And that's why it uses that term, all right? But that's a good question. Charles Wood says, we are pure consciousness or intelligent energy. And they're almost kind of the same thing. You just worded it differently. Now, the thing I would say is, again, we got to be careful when we make statements. You're using a term pure consciousness based on a certain level or perception of understanding of what you read or studied. So I would have to ask, in your definition, what is pure consciousness? And what really is the breakdown of the word pure? Is there such thing as pure outside of how each individual probably has their own understanding of what pure means? Some might say undiluted, not contaminated. Then the next question is, contaminated from what, right? So when we talk about being energy, intelligence or light is one part of that, right? Because we know also energy has a vibrational rate and frequency. Right. And yes, the intelligence factor or conscious factor is connected to that based on our understanding. That's why when we go back into alchemy or the 7 hermetic principles of Tahuti, right? And I always talk about this because you got everybody that be on this Egyptian mat shit, right? Everybody's principles of Ma'at, principles of this. Ma'at this, ma'at that. Well, you can't fully understand ma'at if you do not have a thorough understanding of the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti. I've been saying that for years, right? Because the 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti give you an understanding of the subjective realms or your subjective consciousness. Ma'at is an understanding of your objective consciousness. So why do people start with Mat when Mat is a manifestation from the Hermetic principles of Tahuti? You must understand where it was birthed from, the subjective. So you don't understand the objective first, then the subjective. It's reverse. It's the subjective, which helps you bridge and understand how that transitions into objective consciousness. It's reverse. But it's always pushed in Egyptian information, ma'at. Everything is ma'at, ma'at, ma'at. And that's not true. All right. The Black Tower says, though I believe we are crafted by our demon, or at the very least are crafting each other. I like that term better, and kind of piggybacking off of what Luz said. That's a better way to look at it. They actually both feed and work in conjunction with each other. That's kind of what I was looking. I'm glad I saw that in the chat. That would kind of be a good way to look at it, or a good way to perceive it. So yes. The Black Tower says, connecting to the scripture in Genesis where it says, let us make man in our image, kind of like internal dialogue between our inner selves, more so than some religious answer to our creation as a race. Yeah, that's a good way to perceive it. And yeah, because like when it says there's a lot of things to look at. And you're talking about Genesis chapter 1, verses 26, right? And God said, let us make man in our image and likeness. Let him create he, them, right? And then it says, and told them these beings to be fruitful, he, them, multiple. Male and female created he, them, right? Now, this is before the creation of Eve in the next chapter, right? So we see 2 creations of the female and the male. One spoken of in the first chapter of Genesis, and told them to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth, or refill the earth, which is confirmation. This can't be the beginning, like as they say, the very beginning, because they're refilling the earth. So they're replenishing or refilling something, which is confirmation something was already there. That's the literal understanding. But if we want to look at it from outside of an exoterical understanding, that would be a good esoterical understanding, right? And I'm glad you bring something up like that. There's another class. I haven't done it in 2 years. And that reminds me, I've done a whole series of the esoterical breakdown of how we should look at these scriptures and really understand what's being communicated. But like that. Good. Yeah, Transcendent was the movie I couldn't think of earlier. Shout out to Shaquana McDowell. Black Tower says, using the concepts of the Ba and the Ka towards the Kaaba of Islam, it's then in the placement of the soul's parts, just interesting mental concept. Yeah, and that would be a good esoterical breakdown of the Kaaba, right? Which is basically, they claim was a meteorite, right? That hit the planet, that is encased at what we know in Mecca, in Saudi Arabia. But then here comes all the religious stupidity, that it turned black because all the people who kissed it, all their sins turned the stone black. That is fucking stupid as hell, right? So really, technically, Muslims get offended when you say they're rock and stone worshipers. They basically, after you make your mugaraj, or your pilgrimage to Mecca, and you walk around the Kaaba, then your last thing is you approach the black stone and you're supposed to kiss it, right? Because of what its origin and what it represents, right? Now, you can use it in the CERN because the Kaaba, right, or the Ka and the Ba, as you break it down phonetically, you can connect that to soul parts. This is good gnosis if you want to break down these things from an esoterical concept. And if it works for you and it's helping you on your spiritual growth and journey, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Mystic Moons says, that's interesting because Facebook are working on a Neuralink tech. And I think Elon Musk is too emerging tech with one's consciousness. BCIs is going to play a huge part in. Oh yeah, well, big tech. You see, I mean, that's a class in itself. Artificial intelligence, big tech. global reset, everything they're getting ready to do ties into that. We talked about that on previous videos, but yes. Well, they're trying, and they're in the process of doing that, combining neural with technology. We're going to see. Well, that's, I think, as I just mentioned a minute ago, the AI or the artificial intelligence. The problem, the downside to that, what this is doing is removing our natural human and emotional connection to things. That's the downside. That's what a lot of this technology has done. When we just back up before we even go that deep, look at all the basic shit. Look how social media and technology, as I said, it's a double-edged sword. It could be a good thing and it could be a very bad thing, right? Really, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, that has become people's virtual reality or real world. Some people can't exist without it. They're more sucked into that, and they've done this. There's a lot of documentaries out there that have come out over the last couple of years showing this, how they get you addicted to this, dependent on it, how you almost have a feeling that you can't coexist without it. Look how they did it with the cell phone. I said this many times over the last several years. Think about, depending on your age, right? Think about this for a minute. I'm 49, going to be 50, right, in June. Think about this. We grew up with no cell phones when we were kids, no beepers. You might have had a house phone and then maybe pay phones. Think about how we were not dependent on any of that stuff growing up, right? We interacted. There was more. That was when there was real socializing, right? Now you literally see, let me show you the disconnect and how people are addicted to it. I've witnessed this, and you guys have probably witnessed this many times. You go out to eat at a restaurant. You see a group or a family walk in, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. What's the first thing they do when they sit down? Now they're in a restaurant, recreation, socialized setting. Think about this shit for a minute now. I'm going to show you how this has been something they've put into fruition for years. First thing they do is sit down. They pull their cell phones out. You got families sitting at the same table, and they're all reading. I've seen people at a social gathering text somebody from the other side of the room. How lazy have we become as human beings and disconnected from our real selves, right? So this is all part of that process. Now think back, if you're my age or close to it, and you came from a period where we didn't have all this shit now. We didn't have iPads, laptops, tablets, computers, and all this shit and cell phones. We didn't have none of that stuff. Think about how your creativity was more natural and instinctive. Think about when you came up as a child. We made our own toys, right? We took the pot and the pans and we made the drums. We took the empty paper towel thing and we used to play the trumpet, right? We would take, I know when we played stickball growing up in New York, we would take a broomstick. We'd put electrical tape on the bottom of it. We'd get a tennis ball or a handball. We'd be playing with that shit all day. Right? The milk crate. We can make our own basketball hoop. Think about all this shit for a minute. It's a deeper understanding behind it. All that natural creative intuitiveness is being wiped out by a lot of this technology and artificial intelligence. It's reprogramming your DNA and almost turning you in to a robotic type of person. What does it mean now, as I said before, if you have young kids? When you say the term, when we were young and grew up, we were told by our parents and elders and peers, why don't you go outside and play, right? What does that mean today? You tell a kid that, they look at you like you're crazy. Go outside and play. What do you mean? Yeah, we used to go out and play jump rope, handball, box ball, stoop ball, hopscotch, jacks, right? Ring-a-levio, run, catch, and kiss, right? Hide and seek. Remember these shits? Where did that all come from? The natural intuitive creativeness. We were able to take nothing and create something out of it. They're trying to strip us from that. Part of this virus shit is to disconnect you from the natural human element. Masks. Now I know that goes deeper than that, because they're developing a new cryptocurrency where they can scan your face, right? And they want to see if that technology can work with scanning part of your face, right? So this is the 6 feet. That's military, that's satellite. Anybody knows that if you're in the military, you have to be 6 feet apart to pick it up. So this is all, there's more to it. I'm not, and again, I want to be clear. I'm not saying there's not a virus out there. Whether you believe it was man-made, it doesn't exist or not, they're doing something and something's happening. Okay. That's beyond a shadow of a doubt. Don't get fucking stupid and say, oh, nobody's staging all these people getting sick or ill. It's happening for a reason. So stay grounded in reality. Don't get spooky. 5G isn't causing it. Okay. Already broke that down, smashed that and shit on it, and then stepped on it. And all the 5G people have disappeared magically since last year. Where have they gone? Where have they gone? And go back and watch some of the old videos I did. I shit it all over that because it can't be proven factually. Okay. Look at this in its totality. You'll really see what's going on. But anyway, I don't know what led to that, but that just, the artificial intelligence. I'm sorry. Yes, and then your next comment, the creation of new race or consciousness via integration, artificial intelligence. They're trying to create a neutrinoid type of being, right? That's exactly what I'm saying. We're losing that natural. Now, this is why a lot of people have come up now. We got all the nutheads out there now with, don't take the vaccine. You're gonna turn into some morphed. You got people out saying that you're gonna turn into some type of mutant. That all vaccines, going back to the flu and chickenpox, contain, I forgot what they said in it, that you turn into a mutant. Well, majority of us here, when we were kids, got that. I don't think we turned into mutants. That's not what's going on, people. See, all that nonsense, all those conspiracy theories and sensationalism theories is to keep you distracted from what's really going on. Like even with that whole Capitol building thing, I don't know why people acted surprised. I got a shitload of emails, man. Oh, why are you surprised when they're only doing who they're destined to be by nature? I told you a lot of this stuff has to happen. It must all be destroyed in order to be built back up again. I've been saying that shit since the 90s. And even before there was YouTube and this shit, and those that know me and go back with me during them periods, you know I was saying that this day and time would eventually come. That great time of change, that's why I did that video a couple of weeks back, the great upheaval. We're in it right now, people. Stop thinking it's coming, it's getting ready to come. It's not quite here, it's here. Live and in color, right in front of your face. And as I said before, what you're going to do with it. All of the nonsense you believe will not help you in this time. Shango, Obatala, Yemiya, none of them are coming to do shit for you. Heru, Amun-Ra, none of them. They're not coming to do anything for you. You better do it for your damn self and quick. You better access the energy of what those deities represent and know how to work with it and stop praying to these things and thinking somebody's going to hear it and some mystical spirit force is going to magically poof, appear out of the sky like Puff the fucking magic dragon is going to fix all your problems. You're a fool is what you are. Straight fool. While you're doing that shit, these very powers or forces you claim you're fighting against, you're giving them the window and the veil to continue to do what they do because your ignorant ass believes in spooks, fairy tales, and myths. And then you wonder why shit is fucked up and going amok for you because you're still groveling in front of statues and leaving food offerings and, oh, Shango, help me, and all that Jesus Christ Christianity, religious bullshit that you do. And then you want to turn around and say you're a god or a goddess. Get the fuck out of here. Stop. Only God you are is a goddamn fool. Wake up. Because if you're not woken up by now, you're going to be asleep. And people that fall asleep get buried in the ground. Okay? And that's what's getting ready to happen and is happening as we speak. Now, look, Wednesday's coming. And it's not going to be a quiet day. And I'm telling you this today. And if you all can't see what has transpired and where this is headed, Wednesday is not going to be that smooth of a day. Know that. Okay? What else we got here? All right, I'm going to try to get to most of these. All right, I'm going to skip some of your comments amongst each other unless maybe something relevant. Yeah, and that's a good point by Merciless Butcher with all this stuff we're talking about. Who is to say what is being extracted and what is being inputted with that kind of technology, right? That was at Black Tower. I know you made that comment. This is where you got to do your own right? See, remember, this path is about being a critical thinker. We are the great watchers or observers, right? This is what I'm saying. People don't want to do work. It's just easier to believe something somebody said, or you get mesmerized by some lecture on YouTube, or you took some class from some guru you look up to. Like I said, when I'm doing classes and teachers, I want people to walk side by side with me. I'm not looking for followers. I want people that want to walk together side by side and get this understanding. The days of the conscious pimp is over. Stop falling for all these, I am the hierarchy leader. I don't care if it's a he or a she. Stop letting these people fool you with these fuckery titles. I'm high priest this. It don't shit. I'm elder God Ra Ankh Seti Hu Ra Amun Ra the third. Now stop this bullshit. I speak to aliens. I speak to spirits. Listen to me. I know everything. You know nothing. Get the fuck out of here with that dumb shit. Okay? Followers. Follower mentality. Followers will be led to destruction. You're sheeple, not people. People that are followers, they are led astray. They become sheeple. They're sheeps led to the slaughter. The day and age of the conscious pimping is over. Following motherfuckers and things and dogmas and groups and organizations, it don't mean you can't be part of groups. Don't mean you can't study under elders and have teachers. It means also you must stand on your own 2 feet now. At what point does the student let go of the master's hand and become the master themselves? And if you think you're not capable of that, then you will be a follower until the very day you give up your last physical breath. I follow nothing or nobody. I don't give a fuck who it is. Okay? Neither should you. You should bow down, follow nothing or nobody but yourself. And if you still can't grasp that, then you got a problem. Okay? Don't mean you can't respect people, but people cannot cross the line when they think they are the know-all and be-all, that they got all the understanding. And because they get mad because what you might be saying or teaching may not be in line with their personal understanding of it. Too fucking bad. Who cares? I don't care. Because the only thing that matters is that you get results, right? That's the only thing that matters. If you're getting results, then who cares? Right? Watching the end of this Chiefs-Browns game, this thing's getting good. I still think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. As long as Dallas ain't in it, I fucking hate Dallas, and as long as New England ain't in it, I'm happy. It's a good game, though. All right. If you see me looking up, that's why I keep looking up. I'm looking up at the TV on my wall. All right. But yes, good stuff. What else we got? Mystic Moon says, question regarding the darkness. Wasn't we first on a lunar system? I recently read ancient cultures used to navigate and migrate by night, by the stars instead of the day and the light. You know who talks about The Devil and Darkness of Intelligence by Gerald Massey in his Genesis Grimoire, which is, that book came out in the 1900s. He talks about that. The first great adversary was darkness itself. And yes, our elders and ancients used to navigate in darkness through the lunar signs. That's correct, right? You can find that. Gerald Massey, there's a section in that book called The Devil of Darkness and Intelligence. I thought I had it here. It's funny you bring it up because I was reading it not too long ago. But yes, there is some truth to that in ancient cultures and civilizations, no doubt. Serpent-Headed Man says, I have a separate altar to cast the Hermetic Circle. Main altar is not big enough for the circle. Once I'm done casting, can one move out of that circle over to another altar to continue the ritual? Excellent question. Here's the reality. You don't need to necessarily, all right, I know you might read in books that says that. Remember, you're the magician, right? So when you're standing in front of your altar, if the altar is against, or you have multiple altars against a wall, and you're doing it in a room, that whole room is becoming sacred space. So you don't need to necessarily have to go fully around the altar in a circle. You are the altar. You stand in front of the altar, and remember, when you're casting the Hermetic Circle, you're literally creating an 8-pointed star of chaos because you're going north, south, east, west, and the points in between, the 4 points in between, creating 8 points of the 8-pointed star of chaos. You are really technically the altar. The physical altar is the vessel in front of you that you are connecting with visually, right? You're locking that space around you. So you would just do it, stand in front of the altar, whichever altar, your central altar. And if they're all in the same room, yes, you can move from altar to altar, because that whole space or room is now locked in to your space. And especially when you close the above and the below, you've now locked that entire space in that room. The circle is cast around you because you're what? You're the living altar, right? So yes, you can move from altar to altar. All right, what else we got? Shout out to brother Pedro Malechi. What's up, brother? Oh, wow. All right. Days Rod says, very interesting. You talk about this feeding the subconscious. I had my groceries delivered from the Mexican market. Specified I need a Santa Muerte calendar. I wound out with the love of Jesus. Lord. Yeah, that was probably intentional, brother. Or sister, I'm not sure. Yeah, that was probably I'm sorry, sister. That was probably intentional. But here's the deep thing. You say you're still using it because why? Because you are the vessel or the power source or the tool that's charging it really technically whatever you want it to be. So that's fine. Black Tower says the feather / heart always made me think, have your actions been in alignment or in accord with the passion that burned within the heart? That's a great way to look at it. This passion is concerning living the personal truth we are. Yeah, no doubt. And that's important to understand, that power or passion that comes from that part or the heart. What else we got? All right, we'll skip some of this. Yes, and that's good. You say, this is interesting, Brother B. My demon has told me for decades now, as you rise, I rise. As you fall, I fall. Pretty much. Because that's the real you, pretty much. Mystic Moon says, my personal daemon has taken on male / masculine persona or voice. I always thought it would be a feminine, with myself being a female and all. Now, remember, there's many fragments of your personal daemon, masculine and feminine. I did a video on that called Fragments of Your Personal Daemon about a year ago or something like that. Remember, there's many different aspects, because as we see the breakdown of these 9 principles of the soul, and when we're dealing with the shadow and we integrate all this and how this connects you to these spirits and demons, so there's many fragments that branch out and connect us all together. And it's funny you bring that up and you talk about different masculine and feminine aspects of that. 100%. And you get to that understanding. All right. Black Tower. The 2 books that I was using, if you came on late, they're Draconian Egyptian Grimoire by Bill Davendup, right? Now, the 9 principles of the soul, what I was going over in there, as he said, it's an appendix. It's not part of the book. He took that information from information that's been existing on this subject matter in ancient texts. So we were referring to a lot of the ancient Egyptian writings and teachings in that section. The other one was Necro-Minyan, Egyptian Sethnic Magic, the workings of Charles Pace, which were reproduced by Michael W. Ford. Those were the 2 books right here. This one I've talked about for the last several years and have made reference to it many times before. This one, I'm not sure. This one came out maybe a year or so ago. I may have never used this one. I only went to it today because I know there's good information in there in relation to that. So that's kind of why I went to it. But those are the 2 books. I'm not sure. Pin 33ZYY. Yeah, I don't know what that means. Everyone's Matt now, I guess. Everybody wants to be Matt, and I was kind of talking about that a little earlier. Yeah, I mean, and it's wrong because, like I said, you can't really obtain Egyptian Ma'at on the objective level if you don't understand the seven hermetic principles which govern the subjective. So people can want to be Ma'at. They can be Ma'at all they want. It's kind of pointless. But yeah. Blade of Astoreth says, you know what, Blade of Astoreth, I know I've talked about that. Notifications. Now, if all these boxes are checked, sometimes it's just YouTube, and I don't know the answer. One thing I found out a short while back, about 6 months or so ago, when you subscribe, not just my channel, when you subscribe to anybody's channel, by the way, if you're not subscribed, I didn't say that in the beginning, subscribe to the channel, hit the like buttons, gets the channel out with more search engines. Subscribing to the channel, whether it's my channel or anybody's channel, you must subscribe, hit the notification bell. But not only that, after you hit the notification bell on any YouTube channel you subscribe to, hit the notification bell. There's a drop down menu, and then you'll see it says all notifications, customize. If you do not check all notifications, YouTube just randomly decides when it wants to give you a notification. I did not know that. I found that out a little while back. Maybe you've done that and maybe it didn't happen. If it did, I don't know the explanation. But for you and everybody listening, again, that applies to anybody's YouTube channel you're subscribed to. If you want to get all notifications from a channel you're subscribed to, again, you must subscribe, obviously. Hit the notification bell, but that's not it. Just hitting the notification bell does not guarantee you're going to get all notifications that somebody's channel is posting a new video or going live. So you must hit the notification bell, then hit it again. It'll have a drop-down menu. It'll say some notifications, customize, or all notifications. If you want to get all notifications, you must check all notifications. So try that if you haven't done it. If you have, that's just YouTube fucking with you. You know how that goes. I really wouldn't know explanation, but check that first if you haven't done it. That's probably what it could be. All right. New York Rican says Mystic Moon. Oh, that's it, Mystic Moons. All right. What else we got? Oh, shit. Hold on. Jumped on me. All right, here we go. All right, here we go. The Black Tower. Kaaba Sekhem. That's a powerful and beautiful trinity. I employ the formula myself. The self-deification of the Agatho-daemon has been at the center of my personal practice since I began over 2 decades ago. That is fucking awesome. And I'm glad to hear that. Because really that is the foundation. People talk about the middle pillar or the very foundation. Even when you go back to Israel Regardie's work, that's being centered and rooted. That's awesome. All right. Your Regan said, is there a book on this that you recommend? Would love to read up on. I found it odd. I don't know if you're responding to some. Oh, no. I think you're talking to New York Regan. Okay. And that's true, Black Tower. Yeah, we none of us should have time to be bullshitting with others and judging others. And we know. For somebody that got time to be doing all that bullshit shows they don't do no work on themselves. I'll be damned if I waste energy on time on nonsense and foolishness when I can use that same energy and work on myself. Now, don't get me wrong. You get stupid. Some people, you got to pull a can of whoop ass out. But there's times for that. But to get engaged on a level where it's distracting, no, waste of time. Who cares? All right, what else we got? Oh, good, Black Tower. That Necrominion book, a gem. And again, as I said before, on the Patreon page, the Egyptian Hecatomb, we go very intent, personal, deep. And this, what I'm talking about here, kind of just scratches the surface. What we deal with there on the Egyptian Hecatomb on Patreon page. My Patreon page again for those that maybe didn't hear. Patreon.com/Beniti. There's several different tiers on there. That's where I do a lot of personal private classes, lectures, rituals. The channel is broken down into different tiers and levels of learning. There's an African witchcraft and sorcery tier where I'm going in depth on Kimbada, Palo Mayembe, a lot of those spiritual paths, showing you how you can incorporate and use them. And even from my past experience being involved and initiated in them years ago, right? Same thing with the Egyptian Heka mysteries, right? And then there's a mentorship program on there, like I said. And then the basic tiers for the classes and the rituals and things of that nature. Check it out. I'm sure if anybody listening, if you're really interested in further enhancing your study, that's what it's for. That's the purpose of the channel. And we get a lot more personal and detailed there because it's more private. It's in a more controlled setting. A lot of the private classes and rituals are done on Zoom, on private links. I archive them all. And even just so you know, because people ask this, if you do join, the channel's been up for just a little bit over a year. You have access to all the previous material. I want to keep that in, because people always ask, if I join today, can I see stuff from last year or back to the, yes. Whatever tier you join, whatever that gives you access to, you have access to from the very time the channel was formed to the present day. So you can go back and watch all the rituals we've done in the last year, classes, everything is archived on you. Yes, just to put that out there. All right. So again, I know this might have came up again. If you weren't watching, these were the two books. Again, the Necrominion, The Workings of Egyptian Sethanate Magic by Charles Pace Workings, reproduced by Michael W. Ford, the author. Well, he's technically not the author. He was the one given approval to reproduce them. And A Draconian Egyptian Grimoire by Bill Davenduck. If you want to explore the left-hand path, black magic, Luciferian aspect of what ancient Egypt, and all Luciferian is just a term of self-deification, apotheosis, right? The ancient Egyptians believed in that, what we call modern-day Luciferianism today, teachings. And if you're looking for that real path that's not giving you all this fluffy shit, kumbaya, mother goddess, and all the, you know, dumbed down stuff, then that's the stuff for you. Yeah, serpent-headed mass, if you want, yeah, that would probably be a good thing. The consultation can be used for that and other things. That's probably a good thing because we can go into depth what those tiers represent if that helped you make a choice, most definitely. Mystic Moon says, have you watched his Dark Materials yet? It touches. No, I haven't, man. I keep forgetting. You know what? I'm going to make a note of that shit. Mystic Moons, send me an email so I don't forget to watch that. I'm sorry. Not like you need to be, but just so I have a reminder. All right, let's see what else. Take a couple more and let's wrap this up soon. Okay, so this is to your earlier about your personal daemon, Luz. You imagine it to be like a transformer. Okay, small pieces coming together to reflect one whole personal daemon with many, yes, that definitely in line with what we were talking about or what I was trying to convey earlier based on what we developed via self-work. Yes, that is a good practical and good way to perceive and look at it, right? Days Rise says, Google for X collects so much data they're making a separate entity of you. I'm not sure what that is. Oh yeah, the phone thing. We're all guilty of that. I'm not, look, when I was saying that earlier, I'm guilty of that too. But I've mentioned this before, and this has happened to me, and it didn't even faze me, but I've mentioned this before. They literally have, there's a term, somebody can Google it and find it. I just can't recollect it offhand. They've created a syndrome for when people who can't cope and leave their cell phone at home. There's a term for it that creates, it's actually classified as almost a disorder or disease. You ever see somebody forget their cell phone at home and freak out and get to where they got, like almost as if they can't function or exist? As I said earlier, if you're my age or around my age or maybe older, you know, for years, we functioned fine without any of that shit, okay? Well, look, if we had a house phone back then, think about how you stayed out all day in the summertime as a kid and you had, I mean, I know it's a different era. It's crazier now. But I remember in the summertime growing up in New York, I stayed out all day on the block, in the neighborhood. We were out from the crack on till the street lights came on at night. No cell phone. We had no leash on us. Don't get me wrong. I understand it was a different era in time. Even when I went through my high school and teenage years, it was a house phone. When you socialized, you did that from your house. You call your friends, like, hey, man, I'm going to meet you down at the spot, such and such, blah, blah, blah. Right? That was it. You got to the spot. You interreacted. You socialized. You know, there was no cell phones. Our pages came a little bit later, but that really wasn't the same thing. But what I'm saying is that's when we were really socialized. Real socializing is gone. It doesn't exist no more. The phone, the computers, the tablets, the iPads, all that is now our form of socializing. This was done intentionally for all the things that we were talking about earlier. We're all guilty of that. All right. What else we got? Black Tower says, I conceptualize a demon as being the truest concept of our perfected self without all the flaws. I got a problem with that. All right, so Black Tower says, shit, me and my brothers were always outside in the woods or cornrows and camping, playing sword fights. See what I'm saying? Comstocks and pretending to be superheroes. And yeah, remember that? I remember on my stoop in New York. Why do you bring that up? I think I mean, depending on where you grew up, you had your own methodologies. But I don't know if you guys remember the old cheesy Batman TV show with Adam West and what's his name? Dick Richard. I forgot the guy who played Robin. You remember the one where they'd hit it and then bam would come in writing over the screen, bam, kazam, pow, wow. You know, with Eartha Kitt was the original Catwoman. Burgess Meredith, who you guys are familiar with from Rocky, he was the Penguin. I don't know if you guys remember the cheesy Batman TV show from back in the day. I remember watching that shit every day after school and then taking a towel and a clothespin. You take a towel on, and sometimes you draw on the back of the towel. You draw it on paper and tape it to the towel, and you put a clothespin on and you jump off the stoop and, think you were flying and shit like that and play superhero and villains. You made your own Batmobile, was the bottom of the steps. That's what I'm saying. We used to do shit like that. We don't do that stuff no more. Kids don't even know what that is. Now, the only thing kids want to do, they want to get on all these devices, play video games, watch TV, and all the creative stuff is out the window. And one thing I'm glad my little guy is active. He plays sports. I think sports is a great thing because that interaction, it teaches you a lot of discipline, social skills, and it harnesses a lot of other skills, especially ice hockey. Ice hockey is not an easy sport to play. And I love watching the little guy play it. All right. Yeah, our imaginations, right? Imaginations has root in the word image, right? Our imagination, we create images, bring things into life, right? No, it was Gerald Massey. Hold on. Let me see the other book I was talking about. Hold on. Yeah, there's a lot of goddamn fools out here. Hold on, let me get that book. The excerpt of it is in actually Set the Outsider, but I'll get you the whole name of the book. Hold on one second. You know me, I got a laboratory here. All right, the name of the book is Natural Genesis. It was published in the early 1900s by Gerald, G-E-R. I'll type it in. Natural Genesis by Gerald Massey. I'm going to type Natural Genesis by Gerald Massey. All right, I just typed it in. All right, that's the name of the book. In there, he talks about how at one time, for an example, it's right here real quick. I'm going to wrap this up soon because it's time to grub. I know the fam's getting hungry. And I know somebody's going to be walking in here any minute looking for food. All right, in the excerpt in Natural Genesis, there's a section in there called The Devil of Darkness in the Light of Evolution. To your point, what you were talking about earlier, right? Where is it? In section 8, right? No, section 11. The earliest mode of representing the eternal alternation of external phenomena called night and day, or darkness and light, the good and the bad, is found in the universal myth, right? Then it goes on to sense, hence darkness itself was the earliest devil or adversary, the obstructor and deluder of man, the eternal enemy of the sun. We speak of the jaws of darkness. And darkness was the vast, huge swallower of the light, night, and afternight. We know this was, now here's what you were talking about earlier. We know this was identified as primary power because the primitive or early man reckoned time by nights and the years by eclipses. This mode of reckoning was first and universal. It gets more into the lunar thing. So yes, what you're talking about is in that book, Natural Genesis, which came out, by the way, in the very early 1900s. A great book. All right. Yeah, I try to be on fire, brother. I appreciate that. Gerald, right? You see the name Gerald, Gerald, not general like Army General. Gerald Massey. There you go, Days Rod. It's all in the intent. You are right. All right, what else we got? Oh, shit. Yeah. All right. Yeah, and Black Tower, YouTube is always changing this notification. I can't keep up with this shit anymore. But what I was saying earlier, I do know you have to do that with the notification bell thing. Okay, yeah, check out the Hecateer, and you know, if you want to, whatever, we'll go from there. Yeah, I don't mind doing an interview, brother. Just send me your email. We can set it up. Definitely. Pin 33ZYY. That was answered in the very beginning. You must have came extremely late. Go to the very beginning of the video when it uploads. That question was answered in detail. And actually, we went through a whole 9 points. I'm not sure what point you came in, but for the sake of time, and I'm about to wrap this up. I've been on here for over 2 hours. So this will upload shortly after I get off. And that was answered in the first half an hour of the video, that question. All right. Yeah, that's the term. No, nomophobia, the fear of being without a mobile phone. That is crazy, man. Yeah, crazy. This is the bullshit they come up with. Yeah, you know, life was simpler before we weren't dealing with all this bullshit, right? All right, almost at the bottom here. Yeah, the safety pins we did that. I remember the bear. You know how many times I stuck my finger doing that shit when I was a kid? Especially if you had a thick towel and the safety pin wasn't that strong, how many times that thing would just pull back and catch you somewhere? Man, we used to try anything. You know, we used to take, remember we used to take the Frisbee? That was the steering wheel. If you pretend like you were driving we used to pretend like we were sitting in the Batmobile and we take a Frisbee as the steering wheel. Just all types of shit we did. Did anybody even play Frisbee anymore? I don't even know. What else we got? Okay, so yeah. So you guys had your own forms of fun in the woods in Alabama. That's what I'm talking about. It did a lot. You know, a lot of it depends on your geographical location and where you grew up and what you did as kids. But it's irrelevant because it was all about using your imagination. It doesn't matter. It's just obviously your environment's going to influence some of that. But that's cool. The Instagram, if you're talking about the Instagram, it's Primordial Chaos 9. Again, everything is in the description box of the videos. The Instagram, the Facebook, how to contact me for consultations and readings, classes, all that stuff. All right. All right. I'm done. That's at the bottom. I'm going to wrap it up. I want to thank you guys again for tuning in. I'll probably be back on here in a week or so. I appreciate you guys supporting the channel. Don't forget, we got the upcoming class on March 6th. You can sign up for that on Instagram. The information is there. It's here in the community section. It's on Facebook. That can be paid via either PayPal or Cash App. So definitely go on there, check that out. We also have the upcoming Patreon class this upcoming Saturday. That's going to be for those on Patreon. We're going to be talking about Theta Sorcery. Crypto Chromes and the Sixth Sense. That's going to be Saturday, the 23rd. Other than that, if you have any questions, you know where to reach me. You can shoot me an email at khnum19@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. Again, everything I'm telling you is in the description box of the videos. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Infernal blessings to all, and we will talk soon. All right.